Hi, my dear friends. Some words of Torah for Parshat Bo. Free at last. One cannot help but be inspired and filled with pride upon reading about the exodus of the Jewish people. You know, if we read the verses carefully, we're not just reading about an exodus, but also about a birth. The very formation of the Jewish people is described in the verses that deal with our departure from Egypt. One of the cues for this is how the Jewish people are referred to when describing their departure. In chapter 12, verse 42, it says that after 430 years, on that very day, Yatzeu kol tzivot Hashem me'eretz Mitzrayim. On that day, all the tzivot Hashem left the land of Egypt. Tzivot Hashem, anyone even mildly familiar with Chabad associates that term with a youth movement that was started in 1980 by the Lubavitcher Rebbe of blessed memory as a means of increasing Jewish pride and observance. Well, what does the term, as it appears in the Torah, Tzivot Hashem, what does it actually mean? Why aren't the Jews called Bnei Yisrael in this verse, as we would normally expect? The very first time the word Sava is used in the Torah is in the book of Genesis, chapter 2, verse 1. When describing the completion of the creation. The Torah says, Vayichulu, Hashamayim ve'ha'aretz, v'chol tzeva'am, heaven and earth, and their respected savas were completely. The word doesn't just mean the individual components of heaven and earth, but rather implies something deeper. As Rabbi Avraham, son of the Rambam, notes, the word sava in Hebrew usually means an army of soldiers. But what is an army, actually? More broadly, it refers to any group of individual components that assemble intentionally for a specific purpose. The Torah is communicating that creation was only complete, and indeed this is the very definition of creation being complete, when all of the individual components that were necessary for heaven and earth to function properly were assembled in their proper rank and station. The Torah deliberately uses the same terminology as the creation story when describing the completion of the creation and formation of the Jewish people. When we left Egypt, we were called Tzivot Hashem because we had reached the culmination of our formation, just like heaven and earth reached their culmination at the time of their creation. And we assembled and coalesced as a people. Instead of being the tzivos of heaven and earth, we are rather the tzivot Hashem, the assembled components in this world of God himself, that which enables God to function properly within this world. In other words, without the formation of the Jewish nation, Hashem's plan for the world could not come to fruition. Let's take this connection to creation one step further. The Talmud in Tractate Rosh Hashanah relates that the word sava, which implies a willingness to assemble, in the context of creation implies that every constituent of creation consented willingly to become a part of our current plane of existence. Now, what does that even mean, that every component of creation consented to its being created? Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky suggested that this idea helps us appreciate how different organisms cope with their existence. We might see, for example, a horse or a mule carrying a heavy load and feel sorry for that creature, and that some creatures are beasts of burden. Or we might see a turtle wobbling slowly down the path just to obtain its daily bread. We shouldn't feel sorry for the turtle because it's so slow, because when God created the turtle, he imbued within it all the features and characteristics that a turtle would need and want in order to have a fulfilling turtle life. Now let's apply that lesson to ourselves. The human condition is such that we are all given to despair and depression from time to time. We see suffering, death, and illness, and we question, what's the point of it all? If I'm here only to just schlep around for most of my life, why bother? When God made man, he imbued within human beings just the right amount of intellect, physical strength, and other characteristics necessary for humans to live fulfilling human lives. Broken down to our individual components, when God created the unique me, call me Daniel, He imbued within me everything that I would need or want in order to have a fulfilling Daniel life. The Talmudic quote that everything was created with its knowledge and consent indicates that before I was created, Hashem informed me what my life would be like, and I endorsed the project. This sobering thought is meant to dispel the nihilism of someone who's tempted to give up everything because it just isn't worth it. The sages wisely assured us that each of us has everything we need or should want in order to fulfill our unique purpose. Now, let's apply that to the Jewish people as a whole, because that's, after all, what we're talking about, the Exodus, the formation of our people. So the Torah calls us a tzava, and this means that we as a people, at this moment of our departure, were imbued with everything we needed, our national character traits, our spiritual DNA, in order to live purposeful lives as God's people. Being born as a member of this nation means that we should feel that tzava sense of belonging and a desire to fulfill that function. And here's where we should note something very important happening today in the Jewish world. Just as society as a whole has become more nihilistic and questioning of their very purpose in being, we're seeing a parallel kind of existential questioning within the Jewish nation. A significant number of our youth are asking, why be Jewish? What's the point of it all? We seem to have forgotten the Talmudic passage about what it means to be tzivos Hashem, created with a purpose and desire to be a part of Bnei Yisrael, even before we were actually born. There's a lot of hand-wringing and concern over the loss of so many of our youth who have left or are contemplating leaving Yiddishkeit. My personal belief is that we always can and must do more to inspire our children and make them proud to be Jews. Certainly, scandals like the one we've been dealing with recently do not help to promote a life of observance. But it's easy to point out the problems within Klal Yisrael. There is so much that is good and right about our community and our way of life that should be highlighted. Shabbos alone is our biggest selling point. We also have to strive to be part of that solution. Inspiring our children is hard work and requires us to be inspired in order to be the proper role models for our children. There is so much to help us fill our days with Torah and inspiration. Whether it's at your home or your office, you can always find a few minutes for a short vort. It's actually difficult to avoid all the opportunities for Torah study on the web, and our ability to connect for chesed projects through WhatsApp and other media is greater than ever. But you know, there's an old joke. Question, how many therapists does it take to screw in a light bulb? Answer, only one, but the bulb really has to want to change. I note that Jewish history is cyclical. There have been periods of spiritual uptick and spiritual downtick. During the 70s and 80s, when the Kiruv movement was in full swing, there was something in the air that inspired people to search for a higher purpose. Today, it seems like the opposite is happening. People are cynically texting that there is no purpose and there's no point to anything. But this too, I believe, is cyclical. There will come a time, there will come a point of critical mass when an entire generation will come to the realization that there must be a higher purpose to existence. We are due for an adjustment of what provides the human being with what Aristotle called eudaimonia, or a sense of satisfaction that we are living our lives to the fullest. That void cannot be filled by the temporary stimuli of this world. The Torah provides a unique solution to filling that void, and it is my prayer and hope that our community views itself as the custodian of the Torah that needs to fill that void. The time of the light bulb really wanting to change will be coming, my friends, and I believe that better days are ahead. In the meantime, our jobs is to make sure that our Torah, the way we live it and the way that we model it for the next generation, remains attractive and that it fills our lives with meaning and purpose. Let's look forward to that day when the light bulb will want to be screwed in again, which will bring us to the ultimate redemption. May we see that day, dear friends. B'mheira b'yameinu, amen. And once again, just embrace your families, reassure them that you love them and that you want them to grow spiritually with you. Wishing you all a good Shabbos, Shabbat Shalom.